Discover 10 sinister rain-drenched tales, exposed horrors that will haunt your sleep forever. In the rain-soaked suburb of Maplewood, where shadows draped over homes like dark shrouds, fear lurked in every corner. The thud of rain against rooftops intensified the sense of dread, feeding on the town's unsolved disappearances. Each drop seemed to summon the ghosts of children who vanished, echoing a collective heartbeat of anxiety. A single mother named Sarah navigated this ominous landscape as each brutal wind gust rattled her windows, whispering secrets only the storm knew. After a grueling shift at the diner, her exhausted body ached for solace. The wind howled outside, a menacing voice that drowned out the usual laughter of her son, Ethan, who loved to twirl and dance beneath the rain. As she swung open the door to their small home, she found a chilling note on the porch, "I see you." Her skin prickled. Was it just a cruel joke from neighborhood kids, or something darker? The laughter echoed in her mind, an unsettling symphony that gnawed at her reason. As the rain drummed incessantly, a sense of mounting terror enveloped her. That laughter faded, replaced by sinister whispers curling through the creaking walls, hidden voices calling out Ethan's name. Panic clutched at her heart. What if the legends were true? Maplewood had seen its share of horror, and Sarah had always believed in its goodness. But the shadows lurking just a few blocks away now seemed closer, whispering her fears into reality. With the storm battering their fragile home, she grasped at any hope. Rushing to the authorities, all she received were condescending smirks. They dismissed her anxious words like raindrops sliding off a slick roof, leaving her crushed beneath the weight of her own helplessness. The false safety she once took for granted drifted away like storm clouds, leaving a deep sense of betrayal. Who could she trust? Desperate, Sarah barricaded her thoughts with determination. She had to shield Ethan from the growing darkness. Yet, as she hugged him close, the whispers became louder, slithering through the corners of her mind. The rain wouldn't stop, it tapped in rhythm with her rapid heartbeat. Had she become transparent, a ghost in her own home? The walls seemed to lean in, closing her in like a trap, with each drop of rain like a ticking clock counting down to something terrible. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just when silence fell after the violent storm, the atmosphere shifted. A grave stillness filled the room, heavy and oppressive as though time had paused. In that chilly pause, Sarah felt a ripple of dread. The note on the porch haunted her thoughts. It had been no prank. The whispers coalesced into a cacophony of malicious echoes. In a burst of protective instincts, Sarah grabbed Ethan's hand to escape the claustrophobic horror of their home. Just as they stepped towards the door, a chilling voice whispered from the darkened hallway, sharper and clearer than before, "I see you." The dread tightened in her stomach, and she could feel the unseen presence watching them with a predatory hunger. Everything she thought she knew about their quiet little town was crumbling, and she was left standing at the precipice of fear, knowing she had to confront the darkness or be consumed by it. How far would she go to protect her child from the lurking malevolence? Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, drowning out the whisper that danced in the shadows. "We need to get out," she murmured to Ethan, pulling him toward the door. With every step, the air thickened, as though the house itself was clenching its fists to keep them imprisoned. The front door creaked ominously as she gripped the handle, breath held tight in her lungs. The rain had lessened to a hiss outside, but the weight of dread inside only grew heavier. What waited for them in the storm? Before she could turn the knob, the house shuddered as if it had drawn a breath, and the voice emerged once more, low and taunting, "You can't escape me." Ethan shivered, his small body trembling against hers. "Mom, I'm scared." He glanced over his shoulder, eyes wide with a mix of confusion and terror. In that moment, Sarah felt a surge of protectiveness. She needed to be strong for him. "Mommy's here. You're safe," she said, but doubt gnawed at her. She hesitated, casting a quick glance into the darkened hallway. Shadows flickered at the edges of her vision, looming and malignant. With a deep breath, she turned the knob. The door swung open with a groan, revealing the rain-slicked street outside. A cold gust pushed her back, and Sarah bit down on her fear, urging herself forward. "Come on, Ethan." As they stepped out, the world seemed unreal. Streetlights flickered, casting ghostly glows on the puddles, swirling with reflections of the stormy sky. Each shuddering light stirred something inside her, a primal instinct to run. But where? "Where do we go, Mom?" Ethan's voice broke through her spiral of panic. She thought of the diner, the one place she could trust, where familiarity clung to every surface like the scent of grease. "Just to the diner," she managed. "We'll find help there." With their feet splashing through the waterlogged road, Sarah didn't look back. Instead, she focused on the distant glow of the diner, trying to shake the feeling that they were being followed. The rain fell heavier now, almost like the storm was reaching out, trying to claim them. Suddenly, a rustling sound echoed from behind. An icy thrill shot through her veins as she quickened her pace. What if the legends were true? What if the shadows were alive? Desperation clawed at her, urging her to outrun the unseen terror that stalked them. "Mom!" Ethan's voice grew frantic. I hear them." The whispers. The ground felt unstable underfoot, like it could swallow them whole. She tightened her grip on his hand, feeling every tremor in his small fingers. They staggered forward, but with each step, Sarah could sense those whispers curling around her, seeping into her skin. "Keep running!" she shouted, pushing her legs harder. Her breath caught in her throat when she noticed figures shifting in the periphery of the headlights. Shadows were drawing closer, dancing with malicious intent as they licked the edges of the diner's light. "Wait!" A voice called, distorted by the thick rain. It was a woman's voice, but it sent chills through her heart. She reveled in the strangest mix of dread and hope. "You need to run. Don't look back." Sarah spared one swift glance over her shoulder, a mistake that sent ice coursing through her body. Dark figures lurked just beyond the open diner door, eyes glinting with something hungry. They were everywhere, an army of the lost. "Mom!" Ethan yelled, and she squeezed his hand tighter. They stumbled towards the diner, but the door slammed shut with a resounding bang, vibrations rippling through the ground as darkness closed around them. A cold wind surged, wrapping around her throat, threatening to choke out her scream. "We can't get in," she gasped, heart racing. The din of the storm matched the chaos inside her mind. If they stayed out here, they would be caught. If they broke in, what awaited them there? "What now?" she whispered, glancing at Ethan, wide-eyed with terror. In that moment of despair, a laugh, sharp as broken glass, echoed from the shadows. "You thought you could escape?" A figure emerged, stepping into the light, a face Sarah recognized from Whispered Legends of Maplewood. But what she didn't know was that this was just the beginning of the storm. The figure took a step closer, revealing itself fully. The storm sparkled around her like a shroud of darkness, her long hair slicked back, eyes gleaming with unnatural light. She wore an expression of twisted delight, a predator savoring her prey. "Welcome to my domain," she said, her voice like ice slicing through the howling wind. Sarah felt her heart plummet. "I'm not here for you," she shouted, trying to sound defiant even as her knees felt weak. The woman laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the rain-soaked night. "Oh, but you are. You've come just in time for the show." From behind the figure, shadows slithered forward, undulating like smoke, merging into human-like forms. They drifted toward the diner, mere silhouettes of despair. Faces formed momentarily, contorted and pleading. Sarah's stomach twisted as recognition hit her. These were people, lost souls trapped in the curse of the storm, just as the legends warned. "Ethan, we have to go," she urged, pulling him backward into the downpour. But the ground churned beneath them, muck sucking at their shoes, holding them in place. Panic ignited. Run! She screamed, forcing herself to turn away from the terrors inching closer, yet just as she began to move, a stronger force slammed against her, bearing her down. A whisper sliced through the noise, sharp and urgent, "You'll regret it if you try to leave." Eyes wide with fear, Sarah stared back at the woman, who smiled with razor-sharp teeth, illuminated by the sporadic flashes of lightning. "You think you can escape? The shadows are hungry, and they thirst for fresh screams." Ethan tugged desperately at her arm. "Mom! Don't let them take us. Please." His voice cracked, and Sarah's heart splintered. She had to protect him. Desperation clawed at her throat. "We aren't going anywhere. We're getting help," she insisted, putting on the bravado that shattered inside her. "Help?" The woman snickered. "There's no help for the damned. Just surrender." The shadows flickered, reaching out like long fingers of smoke. They pressed against Sarah's skin, feeding on her terror. With each second, her resolve began to crumble. The horde behind the woman twisted and writhed, growing impatient, eager for flesh. "Mom! Please!" Ethan cried, tearing her attention back to him. She looked at his pale, terror-stricken face and felt her anger surge. No. She wouldn't let this thing take her child. "Hold on tight," she roared, her voice echoing against the chaos. With a burst of strength, she yanked Ethan close and raced forward, crashing into the door just as it swung back open. They tumbled inside, slamming against the diner's linoleum floor. The diner was not the sanctuary she hoped for. It was dimly lit, shadows clinging to the walls. The familiar scent of frying food had curdled into something rotten. Patrons sat frozen in place, eyes wide and unblinking, as if a spell had struck them down. Ethan whimpered beside her. "What's wrong with them?" Sarah didn't answer. Her mind whirled, scanning the restaurant, but the shadows seeped in through the glass windows, blotting out the light. The whispers grew louder, swirling around her, eager to drown her in despair. "You can't hide," they taunted. "Ethan, behind me," Sarah ordered, positioning herself to shield him. She could barely breathe. "Why don't you ask for help?" The specter reappeared in the doorway, peering in with eyes like burning coals. "You could join them. They'd love to have you." A scream clawed up Sarah's throat. "Stay away from us." But the diner began to shake, its foundation rattling under the weight of her fears. The walls seemed to breathe with malevolence. Tables and chairs shifted unnaturally, forming barriers, forcing Sarah deeper into the shadows. "What do we do?" Ethan cried, voice cracking, pulling at her shirt. "Hold on, I'll think of something." They were caught between the whispers and the shadows. But one question burned like a branding iron in Sarah's mind: what price would she pay to save her son? The storm's grasp tightened, promises of doom echoing all around them. In that moment, she knew it was only just beginning, and survival came at a darker cost than she ever imagined. "Mom!" Ethan gasped, as the shadows crept closer. "What will you sacrifice?" The specter asked, her voice a silken thread of malevolence, and as darkness swirled, the real horror loomed ahead. The room spun, the air thick with fear and stale grease. Shadows writhed, eager to consume them. Sarah pressed her back against the cool linoleum, heart thudding in her chest like a war drum. Ethan's tiny hands clutched her waist, nails digging into her skin as he trembled. "Mom, I'm scared, I can't see anything," he whimpered, eyes wide and glistening with tears. "Focus on my voice," she whispered, trying to suppress her own rising panic. "Just listen to me, Ethan. We're going to get out of here. I promise." But inside, dread coiled tighter, squeezing the air from her lungs. From outside, the storm raged on, each rumble of thunder feeling like a warning scream. The diner's windows pulsed with darkness, shadows seeping through cracks, bending the very light. Sarah could hear faint cries, tormented echoes of the patrons who sat motionless, frozen in their seats like marionettes with cut strings. "What's wrong with them?" Ethan asked again, looking terrified, like he might dissolve into tears at any second. Craning her neck, Sarah surveyed the diner. The patrons' mouths were open, their eyes dilated as if caught in a trance. "They're trapped," she murmured. "We can't let that happen to us." The specter hovered at the entrance, her silhouette outlined against the storm like a malevolent spirit. The laughter that poured from her lips peeled back layers of Sarah's resolve, revealing raw fear beneath. "What have you sacrificed, Sarah? It's too late to cry for help now." "Shut up!" Sarah shouted, her voice breaking. "We're not afraid of you." But even as she said it, doubt crept in. Was fear everything she had left? Ethan was tugging at her hand, pulling her away. "Mom. Let's just go through the back." He pointed toward a dimly lit hallway behind the counter, where shadows clung like a thick fog. "Stay close," Sarah ordered, dragging him with her. The distance seemed infinite as they inched away, the spectre's presence clawing at them like a raging beast. Suddenly, a shriek sliced through the air, a sound of pure, unadulterated agony. It had come from the frozen patrons. Faces flashed in her mind, people she recognized, familiar faces that once brought comfort, now distorting and grotesque. "Mom!" Ethan shouted again, eyes wider than saucers. "They keep moving," she barked, terror flooding her veins. She knew they had to escape before the shadows could ensnare them. As they reached the edge of the diner, the shadowy tendrils lunged like hungry wolves, inches from their heels, hissing with palpable rage. Sarah squeezed Ethan's hand tighter, adrenaline racing through her body. "We can make it," she urged, voice taut with determination. With one final push, they dove down the hallway, hearts racing in tandem, but the darkness was relentless. Somehow, it seeped through the walls, closing in around them. Sarah saw a door ahead, sturdy, wooden, with a brass knob. "That has to be the way out," she gasped, vision narrowing to the handle, but without warning, it swung open, revealing an empty kitchen, gutted and eerie. Shadows curled along every surface, whispering her name in a vile melody. "Come closer. We'll show you the way." "No," she shouted, pulling Ethan back as the walls seemed to ripple, ghosts of the lost reaching out. Their fingers turned to smoke, clawing at her heart as memories spun a life unlived, joys turned to dust. "Mom! What do we do?" Ethan's voice pierced through her muddled thoughts. "Trust me," Sarah yelled, forcing herself into the kitchen. But even as she stepped inside, she felt the temperature drop, the very shadows leaping in triumph, clinging to her skin. "Don't let them take you. You have to fight." Ethan screamed, his voice trembling as his small body pressed against her. In that single moment, uncertainty flared. What would she sacrifice to save him? With the shadows poised to pounce, she realized her decision loomed closer. And outside, the thunderstorm raged on, as if the universe itself conspired against them. "Mom!" Her heart raced as the specter's laughter echoed once more, ringing sinister in the shadows. "What will you pay for your child's life?" Every choice has its price. Suddenly, something shifted in the air, a flicker of hope buried under layers of despair. Could she bargain? Time seemed to slow as she stood at the precipice between light and darkness, desperate for a glimmer of salvation. But was she already too late? As the claws of night reached for them, the specter moved closer, intent on claiming both their fates. And as Sarah turned to face the encroaching doom, one thought screamed through her mind: it was only just beginning. What if the price was more than she could bear? Panic coiled around Sarah like the thick, suffocating shadows that crawled along the walls. The kitchen loomed around them, an empty wasteland of flickering light and crawling darkness. Ethan's grip tightened on her waist, his small frame shaking with a fear that mirrored her own. The specter's laughter reverberated in her mind, echoing her deepest fears. "Mom, please, we shouldn't be here." Ethan whimpered, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting the darkness to leap at them any moment. "Just keep moving," she urged, fighting the grip of despair threatening to pull her down. They stumbled deeper into the kitchen, dodging rusty pots and utensils that hung eerily from the ceiling, swaying like pendulums counting down their doom. A chill wind hissed through the cracked windows, filling the space with the scent of burnt grease and something rancid. Every shadow seemed to pulse, alive and reaching, and the once familiar sounds of the storm faded into an oppressive silence, broken only by the desperate rustle of her breath. Then they froze. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw movement. Silhouetted figures began to coalesce from the depths of the kitchen. Lost souls trapped between dimensions, writhing and moaning, desperately clawing at the air as if they were reaching for something just out of grasp. "Mom! They're coming!" Ethan cried, his voice cracking with terror. Sarah spun to face the terrifying scene, her heart racing faster than ever. It's okay," she stammered, trying to reassure herself as much as him. But it wasn't okay. The Spectre's voice sang out from the shadows like a siren, "You cannot escape the price of your choices. It's time to pay." Suddenly, the kitchen trembled, and the figures locked in torment rushed toward them, their mouths stretching impossibly wide in silent screams. Sarah yanked Ethan to her side, pulling him toward the back door in a frenzy. "We have to break through," she urged, adrenaline flooding her veins. As she reached for the doorknob, a horrible realization struck her. A thick, black ooze coated it, glimmering with malice. Every inch of her screamed to recoil, yet there was nowhere to go. "What if we don't make it?" Ethan's voice wavered, his small fingers clutching her arm. "Then I'll fight," she yelled, though she felt her resolve falter. The spectre hovered beyond her, cold and mocking. "You think you can outsmart me? You'll owe far more than you can afford with no other choice." Sarah gritted her teeth and pushed open the door. It swung wide, revealing a dark alleyway slick with rain, the ground breathing with each echoing raindrop. The oppressive pressure from the kitchen dissipated only to be replaced by an even darker foreboding. "Mom, I don't want to go out there," Ethan pleaded. "Listen to me, Ethan," she said urgently, looking deep into his terrified eyes. "We can't stay here. We have to keep moving, no matter what." As they stepped out into the storm, the rain spilled like icy daggers against their skin, each drop amplifying the terror pulsing through the air. Then the shadows flooded out behind them, spilling like black ink into the alley, forming a wall of darkness that seemed to breathe and grow, ever closer. "Run!" Sarah cried, shoving Ethan forward as she frantically glanced back. The spectre's laugh echoed in the night, mingling with the shrieks of the trapped souls, ringing in her ears like a death knell. They sprinted into the night, shoes splashing through puddles that mirrored the chaos all around them. But the alley twisted, turned, and closed in on them, each step a battle against despair. They were not just running from the spectre, they were running from the sins of their past, the choices that had led them into this nightmare. And then she saw it, a faint glimmer at the end of the alley, a flicker of hope like a candle in a storm. "There. Ethan, we can make it." But as they raced toward the light, the shadows lunged with renewed fury, clawing at their heels, whispering promises of despair that beckoned with chilling allure. With her heart pounding in her ears, Sarah knew they were not out of danger yet. What lay beyond was uncertain, but one thing wrapped around her like a vice. Whatever the truth was, it might demand a price she was unprepared to pay. Would they find sanctuary, or stumble headfirst into a deeper abyss? The shadows danced behind them, hungry and relentless, as she reached for the light. But was it too late to hope? The rain beat down harder, a relentless drum thrumming against the pavement. Sarah tugged Ethan closer as the shadows twisted, swirling like smoke in the night air. Their grasping fingers clawed at the edges of her mind, dragging at her sanity even as they sprinted toward the sliver of light ahead. "Mom, I can't run anymore," Ethan gasped, his breath coming in sharp, frantic bursts. Panic etched deeper lines on his small face, and she could almost see his spirit cracking beneath the pressure of their fear. "No. You have to keep going," she yelled, a mix of love and terror spinning inside her. Each step she took was heavy, weighted by the shadows that threatened to engulf them both. She reached for the flicker, her heart in her throat. This was the only way. The light turned into a doorway, an old wooden frame standing defiantly against the encroaching darkness, radiating warmth that felt inviting yet suspect. As they approached, darkness writhed around the corners of the doorway, hissing and whispering, tempting them to look back, to surrender. "Mom, I see something," Ethan stammered, eyes wide with terror. "Should keep your eyes on the door. We can't let it pull us back." Her voice was a thin thread, but she pressed forward, breathless. Suddenly, the door creaked open just a fraction, inviting them into its embrace. It felt like stepping into a breath of fresh air, a fleeting moment of calm that seemed too good to be true. "Come on," Sarah urged, throwing herself against the door. With her weight, it swung open wider, and they stumbled inside. Darkness enveloped them like a shroud. The interior was a dim sanctuary, walls lined with photographs that seemed to watch their every move. Ethan's small body pressed against hers as they both panted heavily, eyes darting around to take in the room. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and old memories. A sense of decay nestled in the quiet. As the door shut behind them with a soft thud, the darkness stirred. Sarah could almost hear the faint echoes of whispers, coaxing, taunting. Every instinct screamed to run again, but she was frozen in place as her eyes adjusted to the gloom. "Mom, are we safe?" Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. I don't know." She tried to sound reassuring, but dread seeped into her tone. There was something wrong here, something unnatural. The shadows seemed more tangible amongst the photographs, almost reaching out, stretching towards them. They moved as if alive, writhing against the walls, forming into grotesque shapes. Ethan let out a sudden cry. "Look!" He pointed toward a large picture that hung crooked on the wall. Faintly illuminated by an unseen source, the faces in the photo twisted into deformed visages, their mouths frozen in silent screams. "What are they?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "I don't know," she murmured, dread pooling in her stomach. But each heartbeat echoed, reminding her that the specter might still be chasing them, waiting patiently for them to slip. Just then, a crash echoed from the far side of the room, a shattering of glass. Sarah jumped, adrenaline shooting through her. "Stay close," she hissed, pulling Ethan behind her as she edged toward the source. In the flickering half-light, she could see movement. A shadow darted past. It was human-shaped but not wholly human. A mouth twisted into a gruesome smile as it turned to focus on them, eyes glinting with malice. "Welcome," it hissed, voice dripping with mockery as it stepped into the light, its presence icy and constricting. "Ethan!" Sarah cried, yanking him behind her once again. But as she met the creature's gaze, a suggestion of recognition clawed into her memory. It was one of the souls that had tormented her back in the kitchen. It wasn't just the past that was threatening to catch up, it was the very essence of all the choices she had ever made. "Your choices have consequences," it taunted, advancing slowly. "Run, just run," Sarah whispered to Ethan. She could feel the shadow stretching, the promise of despair curling around them again. They had been given no sanctuary, only a deeper trap. Turning, she prepared to dart in another direction when the doors behind them exploded open. The specter loomed, laughter reverberating like thunder. The walls trembled as shadows surged within to reclaim their territory. "What do you want from us?" Sarah screamed, struggling to keep the fear at bay. The specter paused, its form rippling with dark pleasure. "Your reckoning is here." Ethan's hand slipped from hers, and the shadows lunged, seizing her child and dragging him back into the abyss. "No!" She screamed, heart tearing as she lunged forward. But the door slammed shut behind him. The outside world vanished, leaving Sarah alone with the specter and its mocking laughter. "Face the truth, my dear. How much are you willing to sacrifice to save him?" As darkness coiled closer, the question hung in the air, chilling her to the bone. Would she lose everything to save him? And would she ever find him again? The air grew thick around Sarah, wrapping her in a suffocating embrace as the specter's laughter echoed through the dimly lit room. Shadows writhed like vipers, their movements frantic and mocking. For a moment, she could only see darkness and feel dread clawing at her chest. Then, something broke through that black void, the dim light flickering behind the photographs, illuminating faces twisted in grief, sorrow, and rage. Ethan. Her voice broke, desperation flooding her as she stumbled forward, searching frantically for another way out. The specter loomed beside her, its grin grotesque, ever widening as if savoring her despair. The walls vibrated with the echoes of her pleas, drenched in a cacophony of pain. "Sacrifice, how sweet it is," the specter crooned, its voice slithering around her like a constricting rope. "Are you willing to give up your past to reclaim your child?" "No. I want to play your games," Sarah shouted, resolve hardening in her heart. She stepped back, bumping into the wall lined with the photographs, feeling the cold would dig into her back. She needed to think. She needed to. A sudden insight pierced through her panic. The faces, they were trapped, still screaming. They were echoes of those caught in their own regrets. Maybe they held the key. Maybe they could help her. "Tell me how," she begged, lifting her eyes to the twisted visages, but their eyes averted, filled with a haunting despair that only deepened Sarah's terror. The specter chuckled, its fingers clawing at the air like a predator. "They can't help you, just like you couldn't save the ones before you. You will join their ranks soon enough." A fire ignited in her. Forget the past, she had to fight for Ethan. With sudden courage, she grabbed the nearest photograph, a small faded frame strewn with cracked glass. "Get away from us!" she screamed, thrusting it towards the specter. The room vibrated violently. The laughter transformed into a shriek of rage as the specter recoiled. Uncertain for a moment, uncertainty twisted the grin on its malevolent face. Seizing the advantage, Sarah moved towards another frame, pulling it from the wall, shattering the glass beneath her fists until it lay in jagged pieces at her feet. "Enough!" she demanded, surprise threading through her voice as she felt strength bloom within her. "I will do whatever it takes to save him. I won't to let you take anyone else." The walls trembled, and for an instant, the specter hesitated, uncertainty crossing its twisted features. The room felt charged, a palpable tension crackling in the air. Sarah could hear whispers rising from the shattered photographs, merging with the storm outside, pleading, warning, begging. "Tell me," she shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "What must I do?" "Sacrifice," the specter hissed, the glimmer of malevolence sharpening again, "is not a simple act. It requires you to understand your vulnerabilities, your fears, your regrets." The shadows pulsated wildly, and suddenly, she was besieged by visions. Ethereal memories of mistakes long hidden surged before her, moments of neglect, anger, times she hadn't been enough for Ethan. Each one was a blade, sharp and cutting, each one pulling her deeper into the void. "Face them," the specter urged, and for a moment, Sarah wavered. Darkness threatened to overwhelm her, tearing at her spirit. But she shook her head, the light flickering inside her a beacon against despair. "No. I can bear the weight of my past, but I will not let you twist it." Harnessing the pain into strength, she charged the specter, the wild flicker of photographs erupting around her in a chaotic dance of light and shadow. Suddenly, she understood. "If you take him," she screamed, "you'll have to take me too." The specter's laughter ceased, replaced by a low growl as her words ignited a bond of desperation. "Then you force my hand," it whispered, a deep rumble echoing through the darkened room. With that, the floor trembled, and the walls seemed to breathe, transforming into a portal like a gaping maw. "Mom!" a distant voice called, reverberating like thunder. Ethan's voice pierced through the chaos. As the specter lunged, shadows billowing, Sarah leapt toward the chasm. She could feel his love and fear merging, cascading around her like a swell of water, and all she could think was, "I have to save him." But as she plunged into the darkness, a chilling thought froze her midair. What if the sacrifice they demanded was not just hers but something far worse, and in that fleeting moment of uncertainty, Sarah screamed, diving into the unknown. Would the price of love shatter her family forever? Or could she emerge from the depths, victorious? The plunge felt endless, a swirling abyss that twisted her gut into knots. Gritting her teeth, she embraced the fear that roiled within her. It could not drown the love she felt for Ethan. A cacophony of whispers and screams engulfed her, the voices of the damned echoing the pain of her past. Images cycled through her mind, flashes of laughter turned to nightmares, moments of joy tainted by shadows. Every regret lurked just beyond the veil, eager to drag her deeper into this dark descent. Then, suddenly, the void opened up, and she tumbled onto a cold, hard floor. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. She lay gasping, heart racing as she blinked against the dim light filtering through grime-streaked windows. It took a moment for her eyes to adjust, and when they did, dread seized her. Ethan was nowhere in sight. "Ethan!" she shouted, her voice nearly swallowed by the oppressive silence. Panic clawed at her throat. The room around her was barren, lacking warmth or familiarity. Old, rotting furniture leaned against crumbling walls, and the oppressive weight of despair hung thick in the air. She pulled herself up, bracing against the nearest wall. Shadows flickered in the corners of her vision, darting away whenever she turned her head. "This isn't real," she murmured, forcing herself to breathe. "I have to find him." As she moved cautiously across the floor, the ground creaked beneath her, a disquieting symphony echoing her apprehension. She edged toward a door, its wood splintered and worn, afraid of what lay beyond. "Please let him be safe," she begged, her voice a whisper. Pushing it open, the door groaned like a wounded beast. Beyond it lay a corridor, stretching out before her like a darkened maw. Flickering bulbs above sputtered and buzzed, casting long shadows that seemed to beckon her deeper into the gloom. Each step was a battle against the haunting memories that played out in her mind moments when she had failed Ethan. "Keep moving," she grunted, shaking off the images clawing at her resolve. She felt a chill, the unmistakable sensation of being watched, its breath heavy on her back. Further down, the corridor split into two paths. One led to a dimly lit room that pulsed with a strange energy, the other was shrouded in darkness. Compelled by an unknown force, she chose the light. As she stepped over the threshold, a wave of unease washed over her. The walls were covered in more photographs, the same haunting faces she had seen before, but now they seemed to shift and writhe in agony, their mouths moving in a silent scream. "No," she pressed a hand against her mouth, a sob threatening to escape. "What is this place?" "Welcome home, Sarah," a whisper penetrated the silence, slithering through her like ice. The specter hovered in the doorway behind her, its figure contorted and wreathed in shadows. Its grin had returned, wide and malicious. "You're just in time for the show. Where's Ethan?" she demanded, voice trembling. "It's a time for reckoning," the specter said, circling her like a predator. "A time for revelation." Images flickered in her mind, bright flashes of Ethan's laughter morphing into terrible visions. She gasped, the images of her and Ethan blurred and twisted, memories morphing into nightmares. The walls around her began to ripple. What did it mean? "Face your truth, Sarah," the specter hissed. "Else, it will consume him." The glow around the photographs intensified, and she could feel them pulling at her, each face a mirror reflecting her hidden fears. Confusion gripped her as she wondered. Was this the cost of her sacrifice? "Face what you've hidden or lose him forever," the specter taunted, and with a wicked flourish, it flung open the door to her past, flooding the room with a bright, blinding light. As the light engulfed her, she felt herself lifting, memories pouring in like a raging river, drowning her in the torment of her choices. But within that chaos, a glimmer of hope flickered. "I want to let you take him," she screamed, forcing her way back through the tide of memories. The specter's laughter thundered. Dark and mocking. "Then prepare for the price." And as Sarah felt herself teetering on the brink, ready to embrace the darkness, a chilling thought crossed her mind. Had she truly understood the depths of what she must sacrifice to save Ethan, or was this just the beginning of her doom? With her heart pounding and every ounce of her being aflame with determination, she braced herself. What would she uncover in the depths of her own sorrow? And how far would the spectre go to break her before she could save her son? The light swallowed her whole, blinding and suffocating. Sarah's instincts screamed at her to retreat, but the spectre's cruel laughter rang in her ears, propelling her forward into a cacophony of lost moments. She found herself floating above swirling scenes, memories pulling her like tendrils into deep water. Laughter. The familiar sound cracked through the chaos, but it sounded wrong, twisted. Ethan's laughter echoed bright and vibrant, then blurred, morphing into something sorrowful and haunting. She stretched out a hand, desperate to grab hold of it, but each time she reached, it slipped away, melting into shadows. "Sarah, come play with me," a small voice called, innocent yet infused with a dreadful weight. "No. No. Ethan." The darkness thickened, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. Distorted figures materialized, sphinx silhouettes of people she had once known. Friends, family, all staring, their mouths moving but no sound escaping. Their eyes bore witness to her failures, burdens she had failed to carry. "Why didn't you protect him?" They seemed to plead, voices rising like a choir of shame. "Stop!" she gasped. "I did my best." The spectre appeared beside her, now indistinct yet omnipresent, its breath chilling the air. "Your best is not enough. The truth is layered, Sarah, can you peel it back?" Then she saw it. A towering door in the distance, gnarled and ancient, swirling with veils of mist. It was a door she recognized but had long kept locked within her heart. A door that had kept hidden the raw pain of easy choices, promises left unfulfilled. "Ethan needs you. You know how to save him. You have to confront your fears first." The spectre's face twisted, eyes hollowed and filled with malice. "Will you embrace the past you've buried, or live in torment of your own design? He will suffer for your sins." With each word, the spectre's presence grew stronger, pushing her closer to that door. The pressure of guilt weighed on her chest, causing her heart to falter. "Face it," she whispered to herself, pulse racing. Trembling, she moved toward the door. Each step felt like a funeral march, memories swept through her, visceral snapshots of sadness. The betrayal of trust. The whispers of anger. The fleeting moments where she pushed him away instead of holding him closer. As her hand brushed against the cold wood, she paused. Could she truly face what lay behind it? "Ethan!" she cried out, voice cracking. "I'll fight for you." With a quick, decisive motion, she twisted the handle and pushed the door open. An explosion of sound filled her ears, shouts, cries, and laughter all blended. An abyss of her past surged in, swallowing her whole as the familiar sense of childhood wafted around her, each one laced with dark secrets. Suddenly, she was standing in a room flooded with light and warmth, the echo of children's laughter present but taunting. In the center, she saw a version of herself, younger, innocent. And there, in the same beam of sunlight, was Ethan, radiating joy, but as she reached out, the scene warped, shifting into something sinister. They were playing by the well, a well she had warned Ethan to stay away from. The joy twisted, soured, and horror began to seep in, enveloping the space. "Sarah! Save him!" The younger version of herself cried out, fingers pointing desperately toward a figure emerging from the shadows. Wide-eyed, she froze. What shadow lurked there? "Your past is a reflection of choices. Can you stand it, or will you drown?" The spectre whispered, sending a shiver down her spine. Sarah took a shaky breath. If this was her reckoning, she would not yield. "I will not let fear take him." Just then, a sound, a soft cry, carried from the depths of the shadows, catching her breath in her throat. Ethan, could it be? The spectre could take everything from her. Her heart raced as she took a step into the darkness, fear clashing with the fierce resolve to save her son. Come, my dear. The truth awaits, but what lay ahead? Would it be a lifeline or a snare? She braced herself, ready to dive into the abyss. Would she uncover the power within to shatter the very chains that bound her? Or would she find only despair? The world around Sarah trembled as she stepped deeper into the shadows, rage and love intertwining, propelling her forward. Every fiber in her body screamed for her to turn back, but the soft cries of her child pierced the darkness, igniting a wildfire of determination in her heart. Ethan. She called again, the name a beacon in the suffocating haze. Come, sweet child, the spectre cooed mockingly. You could join him and find peace. No. Sarah roared, forcing herself onward. The haunting echoes of her past drifted around her, pouring into her veins like poison. Memories danced with a seductive allure, tempting her to surrender, to give in to regret. But she couldn't let this darkness win. She needed to fight. The shadows throbbed against her skin, whispering secrets filled with grudges and mistakes. You failed him, they hissed, each accusation striking a raw nerve. She pressed on, searching the murky depths for the essence of her son, the one thing that tethered her to hope. Ethan. A desperate scream left her lips, raw and pained as she dodged through the darkness. Panic gnawed at her heart, but she clung to the memory of every hug, every laugh, every night spent soothing him when nightmares crept in, the emotions that made them more than just flesh and blood. I will always fight for you. Suddenly, a vision flickered to life. A well, deep and dark, brimmed with swirling shadows. At its edge, she saw younger Ethan, limbs outstretched, reaching for something unseen. A scream bubbled in her throat, her mind racing with memories of the caution she had instilled in him. Stay back. She shouted, lunging toward the scene. Ethan, don't go near it. But the image shifted again, swirling into chaos. The spectre's harsh laughter clouded her ears like storm clouds crashing onto a calm sea. You can't save him from himself. It taunted, and Sarah felt the weight of the past crushing her. Watch me, she snapped back, fury sparking while grief turned into motivation. With every ounce of strength left in her, she pushed through, willing the darkness away. It writhed like a snake, but she spotted Ethan's laughter again, drawing her closer. She would confront whatever lurked within, the fear, the pain, the secrets. As she broke through the veil of shadows, the world brightened. She emerged into a room thawed by light. It felt decorated with the lost innocence of childhood, skinned knees and laughter. But the memory began unraveling, the joy slipping into chaos as the spectre lurked behind, feeding on her emotions. Look. Isn't this what you wanted? It sneered, swirling with a deadly gleam in its eyes. You can't bury the past. No. Sarah shouted, pushing her hands against the memories, deciding to own them instead of running. I will not be shackled by what you throw at me. I am Ethan's mother. I chose him every day. Suddenly, Ethan's eyes, wide with innocence, found hers. He stepped forward, reaching out. Mom. His voice was breathy, yet filled with clarity. The spectre recoiled, shadows hissing in anger. Let him go. She begged fiercely, charging toward him. As she drew nearer, an unseen force hit her gut, but she pressed on. The rift between them sensed a mother's love strong enough to break shackles forged in despair. And as she grasped Ethan's hands, a warmth spread between them like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. I'm here, she breathed. I want to let you take him. The spectre erupted with rage, forming into a chaotic cloud of fury and darkness, swirling and thrashing. You cannot hold on to him forever. This will only end in despair. But Sarah shook her head, anchoring her resolve deeper. No, it will end in love. With a swift movement, she pulled Ethan close, the bond they shared illuminating the darkness around them. Light surged, pushing back the shadows, banishing old fears. Face your truth. She declared, her voice rising in unity with the glow enveloping them. She saw the faces of trapped souls, a collective strength binding them. They too had suffered. This is not just my fight. As her words echoed, the room filled with a brilliant light, each captured soul reaching out, their voices joining hers. Shadows writhed, shaken by the unity of hope and love surging through the air. Magically, the darkness began to dissolve, the spectre's existence flickering as if it were a candle threatened by a gust of wind. No! The spectre screamed, its shrieks drowned by the cacophony of love and resolve. You will pay the price. But Sarah held her ground. The price was paid when I chose to love, not to fear. With one final push, the light erupted, casting aside the spectre into an abyss of silence, and suddenly it was over. The air shimmered with warmth, light flooding through the memories. No more whispers, no more shadows, only peace. Ethan turned to her, eyes sparkling, the joy of childhood unfaded. Mom! You found me. Sarah knelt and pulled him close, the ache of her heart lifting as if a heavy fog had lifted. No longer trapped by shadows or regrets, they stood together, basking in a world washed clean by the storm. It's okay, honey. We're safe now. As the distant echoes of laughter resonated through the air, Sarah knew they had conquered. She had faced the spectre, unearthed the truths she had buried, and held on to the love that shattered barriers. The rain still fell outside as they walked toward the open door, light streaming in like ribbons of life. Together, they emerged from the darkness into a world renewed, arm in arm, ready to embrace whatever awaited them beyond the storm, and slowly, as they stepped onto the street, Sarah realized that love could conquer even the darkest fears. They were free, now. Don't miss out on more stories just like this. You need to subscribe immediately, so you don't miss a single chilling tale or heart-stopping twist. Smash that like button now to help boost the algorithm and keep us going. We want to hear from you, so flood the comments with your feelings and theories about what just happened. And if you have friends who need this conclusion, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 of them. Show your support because only true fans know how important it is to keep the spirit alive.